Well, I'd like to welcome you all tonight for coming to tonight's Talking Dance with Ralph Lemon. We're going to go kind of through a little bit of history in a way to get a sense of when did you know that dance was what you wanted to do, and what was it like being here in Minnesota, growing up, doing that, and then also when it was time to move to New York, to have your own company, and then to disband that company. All of those processes of kind of change and development.
So many questions. I didn't know that I wanted to dance. I was a visual artist at Washburn High School, and then went to University of Minnesota as an English lit major and a theater arts minor. And it was through theater that I started dancing. I had an acting teacher who had a mime club. It was like a little mime company. And he always commented that whenever I was miming, I looked like I was dancing, and that I should probably go take some dance lessons. And then a friend said that she knew this woman named Nancy Hauser, had a studio. I didn't know what modern dance was. And I went and took class in my clothes and fell in love. That was it. I suppose if there was a moment of sort of realizing that this was something really special, that was it. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it ever since.
And then leaving here in Minnesota.
Well, after I graduated from college, I joined Nancy's company and toured for 2 years, and then moved to New York in 1979.
Uh-huh. And right away, did you form your company?
I put on my first concert. Well, actually, I did my first concert here in Minneapolis. I had seen Meredith Monk. She came with the house and did Quarry, and that really inspired me. So I sort of did a Quarry-esque piece. called Collision Course at the Guild of Performing Arts. It had text and dance and theater. It's probably pretty good, but you never know, you know. And I lost the videotape of it. And then I went to study with Meredith at Boulder that summer, and then a year later moved to New York and work with her. But I was saying over dinner that I had seen, when I first started dancing, I'd seen Merce Cunningham on television. It was like one of the first great performances of dance. Was that going on in like 1975 or 76? And I think it was his first sort of televised dance, one of the first televised recordings of his dances, and he did that cat solo, and that was amazing to me. And then I just thought I was going to go to New York to work with Merce Cunningham, but that didn't happen. And then it wasn't until Meredith came around that I got really inspired again. And then at that time I guess I was really ready. So in 1979 I moved to New York. And put on my first concert there in 1980, and then started at my dance company in 85. And then from 85 to 95, had a company that, did New York seasons and toured.
And you talk a lot about much of your aesthetic and your style really comes out of this idea of investigating form and the whole formalism model. What was that like, and how does that, or did you, in the process of doing that kind of work, think about also being African American and this whole concept of, often we talk about the African or African American aesthetic, and how did your work play in that, and having a predominantly white company and being?
Well, I grew up here, and in the the 60s and 70s, and I think more specifically just about my sort of aesthetic history. I started dancing at the height of that whole postmodern party, you know, and during that period, everyone was coming through Minneapolis. And I think it was interesting because I was working with Nancy, who wasn't postmodern, but came from that second or third generation of modern dance. Yeah. And I wasn't looking at the work that was coming in as better. It was just, there was so much of it coming from New York that really interested me. But obviously that was shaping my sense of what modern dance was about or could be about. There were so many possibilities, you know, from Lucinda Childs to Robert Wilson to Laura Dean to Trisha Brown. And I actually saw them do lineup on this very stage. I'm just remembering that. And Twyla Tharp, who was at the State Theater. So I think the whole idea of form to me was that there were so many possibilities for form, or that form had such a life. But obviously, I didn't have that language then. To me, it was just about figuring out like what dance was and how to get control over my body. Nancy's environment wasn't so much about technique. It was about, I think, encouraging one and empowering one that, you know, one could be an artist. And that was, I think, a pretty profound beginning lesson for me. And it wasn't until I moved to New York that it became clear that one also had to have a sense of control over one's body. You know, if this was going to be the form you were going to communicate in. So I spent a number of years just kind of refining my body, pointing my feet. And I was making dances that were about that too, and they weren't so interesting. You know, they were about straight lines and diagonals and all that. But I think I had to go through that period. So there was this real shift from really experimenting to just refining. And then I felt like I gradually left that and started experimenting again. And near the end of the dance company phase, I really embraced this idea of pure form, and dance is just energy, and started making dances in leotards and tights again. And I started making dances that were really uncommunicative, even to me. Like I didn't even know what they were about anymore. And that was important, because it's just like, well, if I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. And so, like, it's interesting being at this almost full circle, because geography is about opening up into that sort of wildness that I remember in, you know, like in the mid 70s, about lots of things being possible.
And did that, prior to or right before you knew it was time to disband your company, did that issue of not feeling fulfilled by the way that you were working, did that help make it clear that it was time, or what was really sort of the impetus that you felt like you needed to do something else or explore something
Well,
else?
it's complicated, because there's you know, I moved to New York at the height of that sort of 80s, you know, dance party where, you know, you could be a superstar as a choreographer. I was, you know, sort of watching Nabil T. Jones and Melissa Finley's just like soar, and like, wow, it's like, you know, there's more to this art form, in a sense of a life. And of course that, you know, in 1985 that all like crashed, and by then I had a company crashing with it. And then it just became hard, you know, everyone was working, and you know, New York's great, there's a lot of energy there, it's incredibly vital, but it was clear the work just felt, you know, a lot of the work just felt like it was on a treadmill, for lots of reasons. But the economy is, you know, lack of funding, I think, became a really important issue in the art form sort of evolving. And it becomes very difficult elaborating on a form when you're locked into, you know, a 7-member dance company and, you know, performing it at DTW or the Joyce, and those are about your options. And it's great that that can happen, but at some point I think there needs to be more opportunistic energy, you know, via whatever, money, audience support, and that just wasn't happening. And I don't know if it's happening now. So I think there's been a long time of you know, almost feeling it's in a vacuum. And I think personally, I started to feel that you know, it became just hard psychically, financially, physically. And I wasn't sure what it was I was doing or who I was communicating to or why. And, you know, you hit 40 and all of a sudden those things are important. In 1975, it's not, you know, it's like this feels good, so I don't really care if I have 5 people in the audience, you know, or I don't care what this is really communicating. My body needs to do it. So,
and so
those became, I think, sort of crucial marks for my letting the company go.
And since disbanding the company, and do you feel like more opportunities are beginning to happen, or how did that open up new opportunities at that, you know, almost the same timing in which you said, okay, it's time to let it go? That here you are, this geography project is here. I know you have some other work that you've been doing with B.B. Miller and Isaac Julian, and what was the kind of timing and the process of change and letting go?
Well, it's, you know, it's like that saying, you work for 10 years and overnight, you know, you find success, and it's like, it's not overnight. You've been working on it for a long time. And I think that I had probably been feeling that the way I was operating with the dance company was limited and a little dysfunctional for a while. Probably a number of years before I actually did it. So by the time it happened, it felt almost kind of violent, because it just, you know, there's all this momentum sort of behind it. But after the fact, it felt so liberating and obvious that I had been ready for it for a while. And so I thought, I gave myself, I had to kind of create a conscious world for what it meant, not having a dance company anymore. So I said that I was going to give myself a 2-year creative sabbatical. And then I had to give a language to that, because I still had to sort of fundraise and find support for, you know, for my life. So I just started pulling all these ideas out of the air about what I would do, and I would use language like, well, I want to collaborate with other mediums, but I want to see how my 20 years of being a dance artist translates into these other mediums. It was always about like trying to hang on to the idea that I am a dance artist. And I would just make projects up. And everyone I made up has happened. So it seems like it was an incredibly fortuitous time and absolutely supposed to happen.
You want to talk a little bit about the project with B.B. Miller and Isaac Julian and how that came about? And I know you
well,
have
it's interesting, because all my sort of peers and contemporaries, you know, we're all going through the same thing, and everyone has different ways of sort of dealing with the same problem. I probably made the most radical choice, but BB and I, you know, have been kind of working side by side for quite a while, and you know, various companies, etc. And we did a duet in 1986 called Two, which was really sort of altered both of our, you know, works after that fact. And we'd always said that we wanted to get together again and do another work, and having companies, there just wasn't any time until I guess 3 years ago we finally got together again. But I was at that place where I was disbanding the company, and I had all these really interesting ideas about not wanting to be on stage anymore. So if I just do a duet with you, it's going to be the same old thing. I mean, we're 10 years older, but I'm still going to dance with you on stage, under lights, and there's going to be an audience. And I'd like to really challenge even that idea, you know. Like, and so I said, what if we did a dance for film or video, you know? So we had to really rethink, you know, the process. She thought it was a good idea. So we worked for about 2 years. We'd just get together in a studio and work, thinking that what we were working on was, had the audience for it was a camera lens. You know, and it's sort of ridiculous because we really didn't know what that meant, but just having that in our heads really altered how we were working or thought about it. And really, we had lots of really interesting dialogues and kind of picked some really important things apart. And then after about 2.5 years, well, the whole time we actually, at some point in that process, we brought in another body with a video camera. So that it became a trio. There was always someone there with a camera. So that actually also helped us become a little bit more realistic about what we were getting involved in. And then about 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, no, a year ago, so 3 years after we had started this project, we found a filmmaker, Isaac Julian. And Isaac is an African, an African, a Black British. Thank you. So he gets a whole other different perspective on our being African Americans. And he makes them primarily about being queer, quote unquote. You know, he's like committed himself to that kind of filmmaking. So we thought, you know, being heterosexual, that he would really kind of challenge the whole idea of this relationship of a man and a woman. You know, forget a black man and woman, but just, you know, that sort of more traditional gender. And so we've been working on this film, and then we're going to, I guess, complete it in January. We just got some more money. But it's been like almost 4 years, and I think that's really amazing that we've stuck with it that long. But it's been a remarkable process because he brings this whole other eye. He is not a dance filmmaker. I mean, he makes independent movies, so it's really shifting our whole idea about what dancing means and its possibilities. So it's doing exactly what we wanted it to do, or what I wanted it to do. Even though it's not finished, it's in this interesting process.